everyone.
Hello.
I am Lauren.
I am Ken.
And this is Paradise After Dark.
Dark.
Paradise After Dark is a bi-weekly podcast covering true crime,
unsolved mysteries,
missing people,
urban legends, and the dark side of the Sunshine State. First, if you would like to support the show, please subscribe to us at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
On Patreon, you'll have access to bonus episodes, early and ad-free episodes, our monthly spin-off show, Vacation Edition, discounts on our merchandise, and more.
Yeah, and you can also check out our website, paradiseafterdark.com, for our latest episodes, links to our social media, our Etsy store, and a special donate button if you just want to help out the show.
If you have a question, a Florida case suggestion, or you just like to chat, please email us at paradiseafterdarkpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to join us on GetVokl every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for live true crime chats.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, so that's getvokl.com, GetVokl.
Yeah, it's spelled a little weird, but you can still go there. Figure it out. Set up an account.
Join us. It's a lot of fun. We've been having so much fun with it. Meeting new people and collaborating even with some other podcasters, and it's a really good time. I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And speaking of other podcasters, make sure you guys, if you're interested in going to CrimeCon and you haven't bought your ticket yet, we have a promo code for you.
Yes, CrimeCon this year it's been changed to
postponed to
October 30th to November 1st in Orlando, Florida. And we will be there.
Yeah, it's at the Marriott World Center, I believe, in Orlando.
And if you'd like to go, use our promo code Paradise20 to get yourself 10% off your ticket. And I think you can buy single day tickets too. You don't have to buy the whole weekend if you just want to go for one day.
But I got to tell you, if you buy a one-day pass,
you're going to want to stay longer.
You're going to want to stay longer. So just go ahead and save yourself and just buy the whole weekend. It seems expensive, but I tell you what, you definitely get your money's worth. We did in New Orleans, and I think we're just going to keep going to all of them because it was a lot of fun. You meet a lot of good people.
I'm already looking forward to 2021 in Austin, Texas.
It's in Austin, Texas?
Yes.
Why did I feel like I've known that, but I didn't know that?
Well, now
I should know that. So, Well, anyway, so yeah, you guys should come join us. I'm excited about us having a booth. I'm ready to just like meet fans and people.
Yeah.
You know, it's really cool to go meet the podcasters, but when you got fans like, oh, we're going to see you guys at CrimeCon. I really can't wait to meet you. That's like very exciting. That's like, I can't believe it, to me. So anyway, yes. CrimeCon coming soon. I mean, the year's going by so fast. October will be here like in 2 weeks.
Right.
So, Lauren, tonight is a new case. This is a case close to home.
Yeah, this one hits close to home.
In a lot of ways.
It really does. So I'm just going to dive into it. At about 1:15 a.m. on Sunday, May 21st, 2000, Peter Lekowicz, a retired police officer in Collier County, Florida, received a phone call. On the other line was his friend, Roy Kipp, another retired officer. I shot 2 people, Roy said. He went on to say that he'd caught his estranged wife, Sandy, and another man and went crazy and ended up shooting them both. That other man that was killed was Collier County Sheriff's Deputy Jeff Klein, a 6-year veteran of the force. Lekowicz hung up on his friend and called 911. Deputies were dispatched to the home of Sandy Kipp in North Naples. To their horror, they found Sandy and one of their own, Jeff Klein, dead from gunshot wounds. Sandy was shot once in the back. Jeff was shot 8 times. And
8 times. That's kind of a bit of overkill.
Just a bit.
So that shows you that there's overkill, they say, is very personal. I mean, as everybody knows. So let's just take a step back here. So according to an article on CNN.com/Law Center, Roy Kipp joined the Collier County Sheriff's Office in 1981 when he was just 23 years old. And over the next 17 years, he rose steadily in ranks from a road deputy to lieutenant. His personal life was not very smooth, though. He married his first wife, Nancy, in 1982, and they had 2 sons. However, in 1989, Nancy Kipp told a judge her husband was violent and made threats against her, and later the couple divorced in 1990. Now, the following year, Kipp married Sandra, and she's a petite, blonde customer service representative at a local hospital. The two soon had a daughter together, but the problems from Kipp's first marriage carried over into the second. because Nancy Kipp filed a complaint against her ex-husband in 1982, alleging he threatened her and her new boyfriend. So they're divorced.
And he's already remarried to Sandy, but he's still threatening his ex-wife and her new boyfriend.
Which means he just can't let shit go.
Well, this kind of is showing a pattern here. Yeah. By 1998, Kipp had risen to the upper ranks of the sheriff's office, commanding a police substation. Jeff Klein was one of his co-workers. That year, a random drug test brought Kipp's career to an end. He tested positive for marijuana and opted to retire and preserve his pension rather than be fired.
I didn't know you could do that.
The sheriff at the time, Don Hunter, confirmed to the Naples Daily News that Kipp retired under duress and stated he failed a random drug test for marijuana. At the time of his withdrawal, he was suffering difficulties with substance abuse and needed to get that straightened out. A year later, the state revoked his law enforcement certification, ending any hope that Kipp would one day return to police work.
Yeah, that'd kind of crush you if you got that much time invested into a career.
Right.
Kipp took a job at an elevator company in Sarasota, which is about an hour's drive north of us here in Naples. He lived in a company apartment there to stay during the week and would come home on weekends to see his wife and daughter. And this is when his marriage to Sandy began to fall apart. Sandy confided in her family and even one of her husband's co-workers about his heavy drinking and bad temper. So obviously he's gotten worse. According to the Naples Daily News, Klein and several other officers tried to help their former co-worker stop drinking. And the paper reported that the officers visited Kipp and nudged him to get help with not much success.
So obviously the marriage is starting to fall apart. He has a history of violence with his first wife, and now Sandy's confiding to her family that he's drinking heavily and he's got a bad temper. So Sandy starts to take steps to free herself from her unhappy marriage. She enrolled in college courses in hopes of getting a better job and being more independent. So apparently this made Roy furious. Sandy's family doctor would later tell the court. She had confided in her doctor about her plan to leave her husband and how he was violent and drank too much. He ridiculed her attempts and, according to her parents, was fond of telling people he got her from the trailer park and that she would be nothing without him. In May of 2000, Sandy began to turn her plans into a reality. She found an apartment and started to secretly plan on moving out of the family home. The apartment was actually owned by North Collier Hospital, where she worked, and was normally used for temporary housing for employees. It's unclear if Sandy meant for this to be a temporary or permanent place to live. So at this time, Roy began to suspect that Sandy was cheating on him. In the weeks before the murders, Roy Kipp asked one of Sandy's sisters, Wendy Poston, if she had met her new boyfriend, meaning Sandy's new boyfriend. He also told her sister that if I ever caught Sandy with another man, I would kill her.
Premeditation?
Well,
we'll see. Now, on Friday, May 19th of 2000, Sandy moved her belongings from the family home and into her new apartment. And Roy apparently begged Sandy to stay, but she refused, which that's usually what happens. You know, they keep you down, push you down, and tell you how you'll be nothing, but then their last-ditch effort is to just beg and plead with you.
Well, you know, and it's kind of common, I don't want to say common knowledge, but it's, they say that if you're in an abusive relationship, the most dangerous time for you is when you are actually leaving.
Exactly. Yes, I would agree with that in all my past life experiences. Now, she wouldn't even tell him the location of her apartment for fear that he would come harm her. Makes perfect sense. Now, she assured her sister that if Roy were to find out where she was and show up there, that she wouldn't let him in. So she's pretty well assured that he's not going to find her. So for reasons that aren't really known, Sandy did not bring her 8-year-old daughter with her when she left. Now, although the day that Sandy moved out, she stopped by the house while on a break from work and visited with her daughter. Now, that same evening, with Sandy only being moved out of the home for a little over 24 hours, Roy tried to call her. Now, the caller ID logs show he called at 10:11 p.m. About 15 minutes later, Neighbors in the apartment complex heard several loud bangs, which they believed were fireworks. And believe it or not, no one called the police.
It's never fireworks, folks.
Yeah. Call the police anyway. I mean, if you just call, especially if you live in an apartment, because nobody shoots off fireworks in their apartment.
Right.
Just, putting that out there. Now, sometime before 11:30, Roy Kipp woke his daughter up and drove her to his brother Billy's house. Kipp confessed what he had done to his brother. So he's told Billy, hey, this is what I've done. He said, I screwed up. I shot Sandy and her boyfriend. Billy Kipp would later testify to this. And he said, take care of my daughter. I have to go now. So he's left his daughter with his brother, and he's taken off. And he called his sister and asked to borrow a car, explaining that the deputies would recognize his truck. Then at 1:30 a.m., the 911 call was placed by Peter Lekowicz.
So the police actually had to go to North Collier Hospital to find out what Sandy's address was.
That seems a little odd to me, that the police have to find out what her is. But he knew? How'd he know?
I don't know how he knew where she lived. My only guess, and this is pure speculation, is maybe he had followed her at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I don't know about the year 2000, but I know, in more recent times, you can place GPSs in cars, you can hack phones and find out locations. I mean, I'm sure that's not the case.
I would say more along the lines of probably followed.
Yes. But so the police actually had to go to North Collier Hospital to find out where Sandy lived, and they didn't actually respond to the home until close to 3 a.m.
Which is what, that's almost 4 hours later?
Right. So as we mentioned in the beginning, police responded to the apartment and found Sandy Kipp and Jeff Klein shot to death inside. Well, Sandy was sprawled on the stoop just outside her front door and had a single gunshot wound to her back. Inches from her hand was the portable phone turned on to the dial mode.
So she was trying to call.
Trying to call the police, yes. Jeff Klein was laying in the doorway of the guest bedroom, shot 8 times, including twice in the head. The screen door in the lanai was cut, and the phone lines into the apartment were also cut.
So he cut the phone lines. We assume.
He cut the screen door of the lanai to get in, and we don't know. We'll get to that.
Okay.
What went down that night.
Well, police ended up tracking Roy Kipp to his Sarasota apartment where he'd been staying from the elevator company he was working for. Now, as he was leaving the apartment about 7 a.m. the next morning, he was arrested. He was brought back to Naples that same Sunday afternoon. All right, so here we go. This is kind of a timeline. Friday, Sandy moved out. Saturday, Roy murders the couple and goes on the run. By Sunday afternoon, he's in custody and back in Naples. And the Collier County Sheriff's Office does not fuck around when you kill one of theirs, even if you are one of theirs. So,
or were one of their own.
Yeah, exactly. Now, according to the same CNN report we mentioned earlier, detectives said Kipp seemed very upset and was visibly shaking in the police station. He asked for a lawyer, but made several incriminating statements. He said he was going to make it easy and turn himself in. He also told officers, I should not have stopped. I should have just kept going. The only reason I'm here is because I stopped. Now, Roy Kipp was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, and he was held at the Naples Jail Center with no bond.
So what happened?
Tell us.
Well, it's unclear from all my research how Roy Kipp found out where his estranged wife was living. And like we just talked about, the only thing I can think of is maybe he followed her or had someone else follow her or got the information from someone. I don't know. But he confessed to Lekowicz that he went to his wife's apartment, peered through the window, and saw his wife and Jeff Klein together on the couch. Kipp allegedly said he became so enraged by the scene that he cut through the screen door and shot Klein and then his wife. Multiple reports list Jeff Klein as a friend, quote, friend of Sandy's, but DNA tests on her body revealed semen consistent with Klein's genetic profile. So he was, at least on that evening, her lover.
Why do you reckon they would have tested for that? Based on the scene? You think they were just because they're thorough? That's one thing we love about Collier County. I think they're very thorough.
I would have to say, yeah, that they were just being thorough.
To make sure. I mean, because they want to, when you go to prosecution, you want to make sure to have all your ducks in a row. You
right.
Well, did you check for this? No, we didn't do that. Oh, well,
right.
That takes all the oomph out of the defense. So that makes sense. At first, I couldn't quite understand that, but that does make sense now we're discussing it. Okay. Now, Jeff Klein was considered a rising star at the Collier County Sheriff's Office. He was a police officer in the Air Force before joining the CCSO, and he had been a deputy for 6 years at the time of his death. So he was been at the Sheriff's Office. He'd been an officer in the Air Force. And in 1999, he was promoted to sergeant. And he was due to transfer, actually, to the Marine unit within the next month because his skill with a boat and his love of the ocean, as well as testing second in a highly competitive Marine Bureau, made him a good fit, Sergeant Johnson told the Naples Daily News. It's a heartbreak for all of us. The whole department is basically in shock. Jeff truly was a deputy everybody liked, said Sergeant Johnson. Now, Thursday, May 25th, over 1,000 friends and family and law enforcement officers attended his funeral at St. Peter the Apostle Church in Naples. I believe that's over in the Moorings, isn't it?
I'm not sure where that's at.
That's a lot of people for that little church. It's just amazing when those turnouts like that. And on Friday, May 26th, over 200 people gathered for a memorial service for Sandy at North Collier Hospital where she worked. Now, both Jeff Klein and Sandy Kipp were 35 years old.
According to his lawyer, Roy Kipp fell into a deep depression after the shooting and was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He was treated with antidepressants and kept on suicide watch while in jail. He was eventually moved to the Lee County Jail out of Collier County, apparently for his own safety. I mean, think about it. How humiliating it must have been to be jailed in the same jail that you used to put people in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they should have left him there.
Yeah, good. Leave him there.
But they did move him to the Lee County Jail for his own safety, apparently. The following February, a psychiatrist testified for the defense that Kipp was unfit to stand trial, but Judge Daniel R. Monaco, however, found him competent, so they moved forward.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on, man. Where do they find these people to come out like that? Are those like therapists and stuff that are like psychiatrists
paid
that are like to hire? Yeah. If you give me enough money, I'll tell them whatever you want me to tell them.
I'm sure that happens.
Yeah.
I am.
It's sad. I mean, it's sad because obviously it's.
Well, media coverage of the murders was so intensive that Judge Monaco granted a defense request to hold the trial 50 miles north in Charlotte County, where finding an impartial jury would be easier. The trial was expected to be broadcast live on Court TV.
Whoa.
Remember Court TV?
Yeah, I do. Wasn't that where the OJ trial was? Wasn't that on Court TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so this was a big case in the year 2000. Assistant State Attorney at the time, Amira Fox, she's now the State Attorney for the 20th Judicial Circuit, but back then, she was Assistant State Attorney. She was quick to inform the court that the prosecution intended on seeking the death penalty, despite the fact that the way Florida's death penalty cases are handled may have soon been called into question by the Supreme Court. So at the time, there was controversy surrounding the death penalty, as the Supreme Court had just agreed to review a case in Arizona that challenges legal systems in which a judge can impose the death penalty. Now, at the time in Florida, a jury would make a recommendation to the judge, but the judge would have the final say on the sentence. But Judge Monaco allowed the possible sentence to move forward, despite what was happening with the Supreme Court at the time. Yeah,
because he was it's his court.
Yes.
And that's one thing a lot of people forget is when you sit in front of a judge, it's his courtroom.
And just so you know, I don't exactly know how this Supreme Court deal went about back in the year 2000, but I know that in Florida, still to this day, the jury can make a recommendation, but the judge still has the final say of the sentencing.
Yeah, and that's, I'm okay with that. I mean,
so whatever happened back then, it didn't change what happens in Florida now.
Well, before the trial began, Kipp's defense attorneys hinted that they would claim that Kipp killed Klein in self-defense and Sandy in the heat of passion. Is it possible to do both?
I don't know.
Now, public defenders Robert Jacobs II and Michael Orlando indicated that they would argue a heat of passion defense. An attempt to get jurors to convict Kipp of a lesser charge because of his actions came immediately after allegedly discovering his wife's adultery. Kipp also claimed after he was arrested that Klein pointed a gun at him when he broke into the apartment, so he shot him in self-defense. Okay. I'm not jiving with this guy at this point. But anyway, prosecutors Amira Fox and Marshall Bauer were expected to portray Kipp as a hot-tempered man obsessed with the woman who scorned him, which I'm leaning more towards that.
So jury selection for the trial began in February of 2002. During the jury screening, public defender Michael Orlando asked the jury pool if they knew that in the state of Florida, there's something called justifiable homicide, also known as self-defense, and posed the question, do you believe someone has the right to defend themselves? Orlando also hinted that the defense was going to try and pick apart the Collier County Sheriff's Office investigation of the case. He asked jurors, when you're dealing with a law enforcement agency and an internal affairs investigation, do you think it's important that the investigation be objective? And can you envision law enforcement officers actually tampering with evidence? State Attorney Marshall Bauer followed this up by asking the jury pool if they believed that catching your spouse cheating would justify killing them. During opening statements, prosecutors told the jury that Roy Kipp was furious that his wife was leaving him and premeditated the killings by loading his gun and breaking into her new apartment. He had warned his wife's cousin, if I ever found out that she was doing something, he'd kill her, and that's what he did, Prosecutor Amira Fox told the panel of 6 women and 6 men on the jury.
Defense lawyer Robert Jacobs zeroed in on the adulterous affair, saying the nature of this case is betrayal. Even while acknowledging Kipp shot the pair, he painted his client as a victim, which I fucking hate when defense attorneys do that, but that's their job, and I get it.
Right. He actually said this tragedy would not have occurred if not for Jeff Klein and the position he put himself in with Roy Kipp's wife. That's victim blaming.
Exactly.
That's just preposterous.
Yeah. Consider catching your wife on the couch in a compromising position with one of your best friends, Jacobs told jurors, noting killing was excusable homicide under the new state law and if the defendant acted in the heat of passion. Really?
Yeah, I guess. The heat of passion, people talk about it, but it's a defense that rarely ever flies. That never really.
About the only thing it would ever do would be to maybe lighten the sentence. I don't think it would ever get you,
I can't
freed.
even think of any case, and I'm actually racking my brain right now, where excusable homicide or heat of passion has actually gotten someone acquitted of murder. I think it's really more of a myth. It is a defense, but I feel like it's just more of a myth.
Yeah.
I just don't think that.
I think maybe there was one time.
And there's so many, I don't know how to say it. There's just so many, boxes you have to check off to make sure that it's actually heat of passion. There has to be no cooling off period, no time to think. You can argue premeditated murder in 30 seconds. You can premeditate a murder in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Heat of passion is just, I don't feel like it's a real thing.
Yeah. You can be passionate about something. You can be passionate about a murder by killing somebody. It can be a heat of passion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's justified
or excusable.
Exactly. Well, here's where things get a little bit tricky, because Jacobs also indicated that his client, Kipp, was acting in self-defense, quote, justifiable homicide, after Klein went for a gun. Okay. Now, Klein's off-duty revolver was found in his locked truck in the apartment parking lot, but Jacobs told the jury that location didn't add up and implied investigators had moved the weapon to cover up for one of their own. So now, not only are we victim blaming, we are going to go ahead and say that law enforcement is covering up for one of their own. So this guy is doing everything he can. He's doing his job. He's trying to create
doubt.
That's it.
Yeah. But I have questions.
Okay, let's hear them.
So which one is it? Is it the heat of passion or is it self-defense?
Well, according to this attorney, it's both.
And where's the gun that Klein supposedly had? They think that Klein pulled a gun on Kipp and Kipp fired in self-defense. But then law enforcement came and removed that gun and hid it.
And put it back in his locked truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if Klein had pointed a gun at Kipp must have already had his gun out and ready in order to shoot Klein before Klein shot him. If Klein even had a gun in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So why did Kipp already have his gun out?
I don't believe he did, because I would say he was just chillaxing on the couch.
No, Kipp, not Klein.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So why would Kipp already have his gun out?
Because he was probably going to murder them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm blown away because it's like he's kind of like contradicting himself in his defense, because he's saying that he was defending himself against Jeff Klein, but yet he was heat of passion against Sandy.
Yes.
So he was in the heat of passion going to kill.
You can't pick apart and use a different defense for each victim. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, unless he's just trying to get him, give him a legitimate first appeal.
Well,
by being a shitty lawyer.
Well, I don't know.
No. So, later on, the defense claimed that Klein pulled a pistol on Kipp and that Kipp shot him in self-defense. Sandy, they said, was shot when she stepped between them.
Well, which one is it? Did Klein go for the gun or did he actually pull the gun on Kipp?
Well, we don't know, because apparently his gun was locked up in the truck. So, the defense claimed that when Klein collapsed, his gun was underneath his body. So, I guess he had his gun out but fell on it. They claimed that the investigators who worked the crime scene moved the gun to Klein's truck in order to frame Kipp.
So now he's being framed.
Framed.
Okay.
So we're gonna throw this into the defense.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is where things get a little bit tricky.
So they showed the jury an imprint made on Klein's body, an imprint that they say was made by the handle of a pistol as rigor mortis set in. Now, Collier County Deputy Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Manfred Borges, disagreed, saying the marks they referred to on Klein's body looked more like something made with a zipper. Borges claimed, "I believe beyond probability, to a point that is as close to medical certainty as is possible, that the imprint was caused by the waistband on his shorts." Borges even went so far as to request to see Klein's .40 caliber pistol, and
this is the one that
the defense claimed was pointed at Kipp and then hidden in Klein's truck by the responding officers. So as he's on the stand, Borges grips the pistol in his hand for a few moments as hard as he can and then showed jurors the impression it made on his hand, stating that it looked nothing like the impression that they found on Klein's body.
Sounds like something, that sounds like a something legit.
Yeah, he literally took the gun, squeezed it in his hand, and made the impression on his palm, and then showed the jurors what the impression from the gun would have made on the body.
So instantly, he's basically
debunking
exactly their whole testimony, but that portion of the testimony. That
portion, yes.
Well, now the witness testimony. One of the star witnesses for the prosecution was Peter Lukowicz, the friend that Kipp called after the murders and confessed to. Remember, he was the one that actually called 911. "I waxed him," Lukowicz recalled Kipp saying flatly. He testified that he knew Kipp was having marital problems, and Sandy Kipp had informed her husband a few days before the murder that she was moving out of the house. Kipp, Lukowicz said, had long suspected she was having an affair and had even confronted her and Klein, who both denied it at the time. Lukowicz told the jury that Kipp told him that he had tracked his wife to the apartment and peered through the back window. When he saw her with Klein, Lukowicz said he lost it and burst into the apartment. Lukowicz recalled Kipp saying that Klein ran into the back bedroom, and when he emerged, Kipp shot him 4 or 5 times. He shot at Sandy Kipp, who was screaming and threatening to call the police twice, and finally shot Klein one more time, Lukowicz said. He also testified Kipp said He hoped he didn't kill Sandy. Under questioning by the prosecution, he said Kipp never mentioned that Klein was armed and never said he acted in self-defense. Now here is a well-seasoned retired deputy. Lukowicz is not just a witness. And here's a guy that he knows a lot of the people that are involved in the case. He knows the investigators. He knows the man who was shot. He knows the people who were shot. Everybody involved, this guy knows, and they all know him. So we're talking about a very credible witness. And he's basically, and what I like about this guy is he's putting out there what he knows. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to cover for his friend, even though they're friends. And obviously Kipp confided in him at the time, but he's not like holding back, which I respect very much.
So there's also a 12-year-old girl who lived near Sandy's apartment and remembered hearing the shots and seeing a man running to a white truck. Roy Kipp was driving a white truck when he was arrested. And then the jury heard from firearms expert Gerald Stairs, who told them that the bullets used to kill Jeff Klein and Sandy Kipp matched bullets found on the top shelf of Roy Kipp's closet. Stairs also testified that based on examination of the shirt Klein was wearing and the bullet holes in the shirt, he was shot from very close range. Roy Kipp's fingerprints were found all over the lanai that he was accused of breaking through. Now, Wendy Poston, Sandra's sister, testified that on April 24th of 2000, she called the house to talk to Sandy but got Roy on the phone instead. He asked her if she had met Sandy's new boyfriend and stated that if he ever caught Sandy cheating, he would kill her.
That sounds like fishing to me. Like he was trying to prompt her.
Get information, yeah. Kathy Miles, Sandy's cousin, testified that she spoke with Roy not long before the murders, and he asked her if she knew anything that was going on with Sandy, and again, if he found her cheating, he would kill her.
So now he's made this evident to a couple different people.
Right. Beforehand, that if he caught her cheating, he would kill her.
And in a lot of cases, that's all you need for premeditation.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Manfred Borges, who testified that despite the defense claiming that Sandy Kipp could have made it outside the apartment after being shot, he says that was impossible. Now, Sandy was shot once in the back and her spinal cord was severed. Now, Dr. Borges is quoted as saying she got struck as she was running outside. And if you were an expert shot, you wanted to bring somebody down, you would shoot them right there. That sounds like somebody who knows what they're doing.
Maybe like a police officer? Despite protests from the defense, the prosecution was allowed to examine each gunshot wound for the jury in the courtroom. Klein was shot in the lower leg, thigh, chest, rib cage, temple, face, neck, and had a grazing wound on the head.
This pisses me off.
Borges testified that Klein was likely on his stomach when 2, if not 3, of the bullets were fired. So he was already down on his stomach when 2, if not 3, of the bullets were fired. Now, jurors also saw the bullets that were removed from the victims, hollow point bullets, which flatten on impact and do more damage than regular bullets.
Now, the gun that was used in the murder was never found.
No.
But Roy Kipp's brother, Billy Kipp, he did testify that he and his other brother, Scott, and Scott's girlfriend, Lisa Patner, found the gun stashed behind the dryer at Roy's home. The day after the murder, they all drove to Fort Myers Beach, and Scott tossed an item, presumably the gun, off a bridge.
Finally, Roy Kipp took the stand in what Sam Cooke from the Naples Daily News called the defense's, quote, Hail Mary.
Last chance effort to try to save his fucking ass.
According to Cooke, in his article titled Desperate Double Murderer No Match for Sharp Prosecutor Armed with Facts, Deputy State Attorney Marshall Bauer couldn't wait to cross-examine Kipp. He pounced on him with jungle-like ferocity. Court TV captured the drama as it played out in the courtroom. Cooke called it the Bauer-Kipp showdown, fueled by sarcastic exchanges and pushed jurors and spectators to the edges of their seats. Bauer's rapid-fire interrogation left little wiggle room for Kipp. His relentless assault unraveled Kipp. Cooke wrote that Bauer didn't intimidate Kipp with his voice, but controlled him with his command and kept him off balance with his tone. He asked Kipp incredulous questions and mocked his responses. He pushed in to the point of exasperation, then backed off to let him sulk. Quote, Bauer made Kipp act like the fool he was, a lying, conniving ex-cop/cop killer who couldn't keep his wife. Kipp said he could not remember talking to Lekoich after the shooting, nor other incriminating conversations with his brother, his sister-in-law, or his wife's best friend. Let me get this straight. You can remember the traumatic events of what happened in that apartment, but you can't remember a conversation several hours later, Bowers said. That's correct, Kipp answered. Bowers ridiculed that account as preposterous. Sandy and Jeff are both gone because of that selfish man, Bauer told the jury. Afterward, Court TV asked viewers to vote on whether Kipp's testimony helped his defense, and 86% voted no.
And the majority was correct.
Yeah.
Well, on March 7th of 2002, Roy Kipp was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and burglary. Immediately after his conviction, he turned to his family in the courtroom and said, I'll be back.
Who does he think he is, Terminator?
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Come with me if you want to live. Now, the jury spared Roy Kipp's life by recommending that he be sentenced to life in prison, not the death penalty, which I've been converted a little bit. I'm not saying I still agree with the death penalty in some cases, but I do feel that life in prison is a worse conviction. And Collier County Judge Daniel Monaco followed their advice, and Kipp was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
During the sentencing, Judge Monaco said Kipp decimated many lives. Not only has he destroyed Sandra Kipp and Jeff Klein, he's not only ruined the lives of the families of Sandra Kipp and Jeff Klein, but his own family as well. He's left his daughter without a mother, a young girl, and his 2 sons will essentially be without a father for the rest of their lives. Victims of the families were able to confront Kipp before sentencing. What goes around comes around, Alan Klein, Jeff's father, said. And you, sir, are going to get yours. You're going to be walking around for the rest of your freaking life, looking over your shoulder, waiting for someone to stick a damn shank in your back, and you're going to get it. Jeff's mother, Arlene, called Kipp a coward who showed no remorse. You shot Sandy in the back and let her bleed to death. There's no way you can pay for what you did.
That had to be powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Defense attorney Robert Bowers asked Judge Monaco to at least place Kipp in protective custody in prison because of his background in law enforcement. Monaco said a judge has no control of that issue and that it would be up to the Department of Corrections. So, look, basically what he said was, don't look for me to save his ass.
Yeah. So Roy Kipp did file his appeals, and when it got to the District Court of Florida, his conviction was affirmed. He in 2007 filed a motion for post-conviction relief, pro se, stating that he had ineffective counsel.
Of course.
He says that his lawyer failed to present a heat of passion defense and that he was sure he wouldn't have been convicted if he had. This motion was again denied by the district court and his sentence was affirmed.
And he's still in jail today?
Still in prison today, yep.
So, there's a little bit of a personal side note on this case that I kind of want to bring up. You okay if I
go ahead.
Okay, so this one here, the reason I said earlier that it hits close to home for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are definitely pro CCSO. There's no doubt. And this murder occurred at 1:15. It is a murder. 1:15 a.m. on Sunday, May 21st. Well, at approximately 5:30, May 21st.
A.M.
Oh, yeah, exactly. 5:30 a.m., May 21st. I was about to go fishing. So I still do. But I fish tournaments. And in tournaments, you have to fish safe light. So the way that it works is you got to be on the water and basically when it's dark. And so you take off when there's just enough light on the lake to cross over the lake. So on this particular morning, believe it or not, I'm on a boat with a guy who had been fishing up there pretty much 3 or 4 days. And he gets on the boat and this guy's excited. He's like, put this away. And he's pumped. And this guy was just a really nice guy. He had always been nice in the club that I fished at the time. And, he's like, oh man, he goes, man, you're gonna be so excited. He goes, dude, you're gonna have 20 pounds in the boat by this. I mean, he's getting me pumped up. He's got he's like, we're gonna go here. We're gonna catch fish in the morning. We're gonna go here. And this guy is just pumped. And he's like, yeah, put your stuff away, man. I'm happy to be fishing with you. I'd met this guy numerous times. We'd never fished together. This would have been the first time that we would have fished together. And I'd always liked the guy and talked to him at the meetings and things because we had fishing club meetings. So I was sitting in his boat and we're just kind of chilling out. We're about to take off, and all of a sudden this sheriff's deputy from Harney Pond, because we were in Harney Pond, which is a section of Okeechobee, comes up and he's on his little PA system on his car. He goes, I'm looking for Mr. Klein. I'm not going to give his first name, but it was Jeff's brother, basically. So he's calling his name. So the deputy's coming up and he's calling for a name of the guy I was fishing with, and he's saying, I'm looking for so-and-so, looking for so-and-so. And he jumps up and he goes, that's me. So the deputy gets out of the car, walks up, and they're standing probably about 25 feet from the boat that I'm sitting on. And he comes back and I says, everything okay? He goes, no, man, I got to go. And he grabs some stuff. He grabbed like his wallet and some stuff out of the boat, and he gets in this car and he takes off. And I don't know what's going on. So I'm sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden the boat starts taking off, and I'm just sitting in the boat.
You're in his boat?
I'm in his boat. Yeah, I'm in his boat, and I'm just sitting there and I'm waiting and waiting. I'm like, what's going on? And so I see my dad and my brother fished the same exact club. So my dad goes, what's going on? I said, I don't know. He just got in that cop car and he left. And I said, I don't know what's going on. So he goes, my dad says, well, get in the boat with me. So I get out of the boat and I get in the boat with him. And it turns out that Jeff Klein was his brother and had been shot that morning. And I'm in the boat with the guy. And the deputy had gotten to him, picked him up, and drove him to a helicopter, which flew him back to Collier County that same exact day.
Wow.
And he just left his truck there, his boat on the water. I mean, just left everything. So when we talk about there being, other victims, this guy I could see the tears in his eyes when he was there. His eyes were watering. So the deputy must have told him what was going on. So obviously they found his brother, Jeff, dead. The deputies said, hey, we got to find his brother. They knew he was going to be there. They contacted the Harney Pond police. The Harney Pond police show up. They find him before he takes off. And then they get him in a car, drive him over to helicopter, and then take him back. I believe it was a helicopter. They flew him back on a helicopter back to Collier. And obviously for this whole scenario. So that's those things that, behind the scenes you don't realize. But here's a scenario where I actually saw how it affected a family member within hours of it occurring.
Well, there's always secondary victims.
Exactly. Always. But that's why I say it kind of hits close to home. Now, going forward, 20 years, about 3 months ago, we're at Larry's, and I had not seen this man since then. That's the last time I seen this guy I was going to fish with that day. And I seen him. And remember we had that conversation. I think you were there too. You were there. And I got to have a conversation with the guy about that morning, and he almost cried again that morning. And here we are 20 years later. So when I say it kind of hits close to home, I actually saw the effects of his brother that morning, finding out that his brother had just been murdered, and he just literally didn't care about anything else in his life at that time. I mean, here he had this brand new boat that's a $40,000 boat, his truck, everything just sitting there.
Doesn't matter.
None of that stuff mattered. I mean, that's how this was. And the sad part is from what I spoke to him 20 years later, he talked about his brother and how his brother was kind of he was like the key to the family. I mean, he always wanted the family stuff. I mean, this guy he was just an outstanding guy. And the sad part is it wasn't that he was necessarily having an affair with Sandy, but they started dating because she had left him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were split up. So nothing occurred until they were split up. And unfortunately, this is the kind of thing like an ex just being pissed off about the situation and occurred. So I just kind of had to put that in there because this was a scenario where I was sort of involved, obviously not involved to any extent of this, but I got to see some of the side effects of how these things affect family.
Well, and this also, I mean, I feel like I don't want to say it's a cautionary tale, but if I can add a little personal information in here where in my past, I have been with someone who really reminds me of Roy Kipp. When I was researching this and reading all about it, A couple times I got goosebumps. A couple times I got a little bit upset.
And on a side note, just recording, she had to turn it off for a second.
I did earlier when we were recording. I had to stop for a second because if you're in an abusive relationship, like I mentioned earlier, leaving is the most dangerous time for you.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important that women or even men, because some bitches be crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's true.
I feel like it's very important that you have a very strong support system and you have safeguards in place. And I was very fortunate to get away from the situation I was in. And I did have that. I did have support. I did have safeguards in place. I had, but there was a time in my life where I was very afraid and 100% convinced that I was going to die, that I was going to be killed by this person.
And I got to believe Sandy may have had some fear in her life.
Well, she did have that
because we know
fear.
that Nancy originally had fear because she went to the judge and she left him. And so, I mean, I got to believe that she obviously probably knew what had occurred.
And in the show notes for this episode, I am going to put some links for domestic violence and shelters, local shelters. I'm going to see what I can come up with and maybe find some good resources. Not even if it's not you, even if you just know somebody who might be in a situation like this.
Domestic violence is real, folks, and it can get real bad real fast.
It can. So,
and by real bad, I mean to the ultimate. This is a scenario where she's just trying to leave. I mean, here's the part that gets me that really tears you apart sometimes is she left her daughter there. Right.
Well,
and not for any other reason, but maybe she felt like that she could be a danger if she left too.
Right.
And I think so it seems like she left her daughter there, like I said earlier, but I don't think that was like she didn't care about her daughter.
No, she was probably trying to protect her daughter.
Because she maybe she had a thought that, well, if he finds me, he's going to hurt me. And she may not even have known to this extent. Maybe she thought
subconsciously, maybe she knew.
She feared for her safety.
Yeah.
And so she knew, and that sometimes can be scary. So, if she left her daughter, she knew that this was coming. So in some cases, people do things. And if you're going to run, sometimes you got to run far away.
Yeah.
And sometimes you cannot run far enough. So.
Yep. All right. So I think that we can wrap this up.
And on a side note, we are definitely pro CCSO. And this is one of those sad scenarios where
we don't like to talk bad about, but
but the thing with this case is Jeff Klein was an outstanding officer, outstanding citizen, and definitely a pillar of the community. And sadly, Roy Kipp was not. I mean, the man put his time in, but he just had a lot of issues that probably should have been addressed differently.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, everyone. I think that's it for tonight.
So again, if you'd like to support the show, please subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Paradise After Dark podcast.
And you can check out our Etsy store for some awesome Paradise After Dark swag, some gear, a few things here and there.
Make sure to follow us on social media at Paradise After Dark podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and at Paradise Dark 239 on Twitter.
Don't forget GetVokl.
And GetVokl every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can email us at paradisefterdarkpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can also check out our website, paradiseafterdark.com, for our latest episodes, links to the social media Lawrence was talking about earlier, and our Etsy store again.
And please make sure to subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening and rate and review. This really helps us branch out and reach a wider audience.
5 stars.
5 stars.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to us
here at Paradise After Dark.
Dark, 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 dark.